We are witnessing a profound threat to our nation at the southern border. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and this entire administration has deliberately and willfully facilitated the criminal invasion of this country. It is a humanitarian crisis. It is a public safety crisis. It is a national security crisis. When Alejandro Mayorkas last testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee, I asked him how many migrants died last year crossing into this country. He said, I don't know. Of course he didn't. The number is 853, but this administration doesn't care about the body bags that their open borders are producing. When Joe Biden stood before Congress and gave the State of the Union address, he had planned in his remarks not to say a word about Laken Riley, the beautiful 22-year-old woman, the nursing student in Georgia, murdered by an illegal alien Joe Biden and Alejandro Mayorkas released into this country. When Biden gave his State of the Union address, he didn't mention the name Jeremy Caceres, the 2-year-old little boy murdered just miles away from here in Prince George's County, again by an illegal alien, that Joe Biden and Alejandro Mayorkas released into this country. He also didn't mention the Haitian illegal immigrant that Joe Biden and Alejandro Mayorkas flew from Haiti to America, released, who then violently raped a 15-year-old girl in Boston, Massachusetts, who was severely disabled. What we are witnessing is evil. It is wrong. That is why the House of Representatives impeached Alejandro Mayorkas, because he has aided and abetted the criminal invasion of this United States. And yet, Chuck Schumer and the Democrats don't want to talk about it. Even worse, Chuck Schumer and the Democrats want to defy their constitutional responsibility. 21 times in our nation's history, the House of Representatives has sent articles of impeachment over to the Senate. 21 times. Alejandro Mayorkas is only the second cabinet member ever to be impeached. The last time a cabinet member was impeached was 1876, 148 years ago. What Mayorkas has done is extraordinary, and its consequences are profound. Under the Constitution, the responsibilities of the Senate are simple and straightforward. They are to try this impeachment. Chuck Schumer doesn't want to do that. Instead, he wants to move to table the entire thing, and there are 3 reasons Chuck Schumer wants to move to table the articles of impeachment. Reason number 1, he does not want to allow the House managers to present the evidence of Alejandro Mayorkas and this administration's willful decision to aid and abet this criminal invasion of this country. The second reason Schumer wants to table the articles of impeachment is he does not want a trial. He does not want the American people to see the facts. When each of us lay out the facts of what's going on, no Democrat argues there's not another side. They don't defend it and say, no, it's great. Don't worry about the people who are dying. Don't worry about the children being raped. Don't worry about the Mexican drug cartels making billions of dollars. The Democrats have no response. Their response is they count on the media not to report it. That's their entire strategy. And the third reason Schumer wants to table these articles of impeachment is he does not want Senate Democrats, particularly those on the ballot in November, to vote guilty or not guilty, because it is indisputable Alejandro Mayorkas is guilty. And he's not just guilty of aiding and abetting the invasion that has happened for the last 3.5 years and every dead body that has resulted, but he's guilty tomorrow and the next day and the next day. He intends to continue facilitating and accelerating this criminal invasion. Of the 21 times the House has voted out articles of impeachment and sent them to the Senate, in 4 of them, the Senate either lacked jurisdiction because the individual was a senator and not an executive branch officer or a judicial officer, or the person impeached was out of office and the case was mooted. In every single case, where the individual impeached was still in office, and all 17, the Senate conducted a trial and adjudicated and came to a decision, guilty or not guilty. In 2013, Harry Reid nuked the filibuster. That did enormous damage to the institution of the United States Senate. In 2024, Chuck Schumer intends to nuke the impeachment clause of the United States Constitution. And make no mistake, if this precedent is set, it will not be the last time it is used. If and when Donald Trump wins in November, if, God forbid, Democrats have the House, they'll impeach him again. And probably again and again and again. And what Chuck Schumer is deciding is the Senate no longer has to try impeachments, but instead can hide behind procedural games. Anyone who cares about the security of this country should oppose what Schumer is doing and vote to convict Alejandro Mayorkas, and anyone that cares about the United States Senate and about the United States Constitution should demand that a trial be conducted. The American people deserve a trial, and I would encourage everyone in the media, ask yourself, why is Chuck Schumer so terrified to have a trial on what's happening on our southern border? And the answer is he cannot defend it, and he desperately wants to keep it hidden and secret from the American people.
Thank you. Since the chairman has gavelled out all of my colleagues with their unanimous consent, I am going to read for the record many of the chairman's comments in September of the importance of hearing from the whistleblower. Again, Ambassador, thank you for your patience, thank you for your service, but since we haven't been able to conduct ourselves in normal procedures, I'm just going to use the 5 minutes for this. September 29th, in the Wall Street Journal, quote, the whistleblower at the center of the impeachment investigation of President Trump will testify in the House very soon. This is a quote by the chairman. USA Today, September 29th. Talking with ABC News this week, Schiff, the Democrat who chairs the House Intelligence Committee, said the whistleblower would testify very soon. And the only thing standing in the way was getting security clearances for the attorneys representing the whistleblower so they could attend the testimony. From Vox, September 29th, Rep. Adam Schiff said Sunday the whistleblower at the center of a growing scandal surrounding President Donald Trump will testify before the House Intelligence Committee very soon. On CNN, September 29th, Schiff said Sunday on ABC as well as NBC's Meet the Press that he expects the whistleblower to testify very soon. The Washington Post, September 29th. In an appearance on ABC News this week, Schiff echoed Pelosi's message. He also said he expected the Intelligence Committee to hear from the whistleblower very soon, pending a security clearance from Acting Director of National Intelligence Joseph Maguire. In the Huffington Post, Schiff told ABC's This Week that he expects the whistleblower to appear before this committee very soon. In the New York Post, quote, we'll get the unfiltered testimony of that whistleblower. In the Washington Times, quote, that whistleblower will be allowed to come in. These are all quotes from Chairman Adam Schiff. In Talking Points memo, the question was posed, actually this was by George Stephanopoulos, have you reached an agreement yet with the whistleblower and his or her attorneys about coming before the committee and providing the information firsthand? Quote, yes, we have, Schiff responded, and as DNI Maguire promised during the hearing, that whistleblower will be allowed to come in and come in without a minder from the Justice Department or from the White House to tell the whistleblower what they can and cannot say. We'll get the unfiltered testimony of that whistleblower. In Daily Kos, we're ready to hear from the whistleblower as soon as that is done, and we'll keep obviously riding shotgun to make sure that the acting director doesn't delay in that clearance process. In CNBC, we'll get the unfiltered testimony of that whistleblower. In Market Watch, House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff said Sunday that an agreement has been reached under which the whistleblower will testify before the committee very soon. I can keep going, but again, the chairman refused to allow us to put these into the record with unanimous consent. So I've read those out, and as we know, it is important to protect whistleblowers from retaliation and from firing, and we want to make sure whistleblowers are able to come forward. But in this case, the fact that we are getting criticized by Chairman Adam Schiff for statements that he himself made early on in this process shows the duplicity and just the abuse of power that we are continuing to see. With a minute 54 seconds left, I'll yield to my colleague, Mr.
for joining us today. Secretary Carson, in December 2017, you delivered a keynote at the Manhattan Institute where you stated, quote, "The war on poverty sometimes conflicted with the war on drugs, which often dealt harshly with nonviolent offenders, taking men away from their families and disproportionately affecting minority communities." Are these your words?
Yes.
Do you acknowledge that the war on drugs disproportionately impacted Black communities and communities of color, despite marijuana and other drug use levels being comparable to white communities?
Traditionally, that has been the case.
And I see here, are you also aware that when a formerly incarcerated person is homeless, there's a 60% chance that they will be rearrested? But if that same person has access to housing, the percentage drops to 29%.
Housing is one of the factors that is beneficial in preventing recidivism.
Mm-hmm. I'm concerned here that the war on drugs has not been solely limited to incarceration, and that the negative impact of the war on drugs has not been limited to incarceration. But also we had legislated rippling effects that also seems to have been codified in our housing system. Are you aware of HUD's one-strike rule, which evicts tenants for a single incidence of criminal activity, no matter how minor, with no holistic review?
There is the ability of local jurisdictions to alter that rule.
Mm-hmm. But federally, this provision still persists, correct?
As far as I know, it's still intact.
Mm-hmm. And so a person could be stop and frisked and be found in possession of a small amount of marijuana and then be evicted or have their entire family evicted from public housing.
That is a possibility.
Are you aware that owners and public housing authorities can subject tenants to tests for alcohol and drugs?
They can require that, yes.
Mm-hmm. And I see here that we also have no-fault policies where an entire family can be evicted for the criminal activity of a guest of the household, even without the knowledge of anyone in that household. Are you aware of that provision as well?
The use of such activity is extremely limited, if ever used.
Mm-hmm. But they are still codified in federal law, correct?
Is it on the federal books? As far as I know, it's been on the books for many, many years.
Mm-hmm. Do you support reversing some of these provisions?
Do I prevent which provisions?
Say the no-fault policy.
I can talk about that on individual cases if you have an example that you want to talk about.
Well, I'd say, would you support being able to move some of these policies over to a more holistic review? You know, you yourself asked for case-by-case consideration. Should that case-by-case consideration be codified in federal law instead of having blanket one-strike or no-fault policies?
I'm always in favor of more flexibility.
Well, I'm happy to hear that, Secretary Carson. I'd also like to highlight there's been much talk about the issue with NYCHA and public housing, and it's horrifying, the conditions that are happening in NYCHA. It's horrifying that people are living through winter without heat, opening their ovens to try to make sure that they're able to sleep through the night. But I think it's important to notice that this is not about throwing more money to the problem. This is about throwing the money at the problem. NYCHA and public housing across the country has been starved by members of Congress for over 15 years, and that deficit has built up for many, many years, which has led to, in New York City alone, a $32 billion price tag to make sure that we get people basic heat, hot water, and so on. And I don't think that, no matter what policy changes we make, you can't take food away from a child and then not understand why they can't or don't eat. And I think that that's exactly what's happening with our public housing program. Chairwoman, I would like to seek unanimous consent to submit to the record a New York Times article on what it would take to fix New York's public housing.
Without objection, such is the order.
Thank you very much. And I'd also like to make of note that the provisions that we wanted to reverse, including one strike and no fault policies, are being introduced in our bill on the Fair Chance at Housing Act. Thank you very much.